Hello, I'm Simon. Thank you for choosing our training video on drug testing in Washington State. In this video, we will discuss basic drug policies, when to test employees, how to test, and we'll finish up with some national statistics that explain why workplace drug testing is important to HR functions. Let's get started. Drug testing policies are not required under federal law, but are useful to have in a workplace to ensure a healthy and productive working environment. Policies will be different at each company, depending on the size of the business and the industry of the business. Some companies will have a very basic policy that only screens a few times, looking for a small number of illegal substances. Other policies go in depth with more testing dates and a larger panel of substances they wish to screen for. A basic policy will test employees upon a company extending a job offer. The job offer is generally revoked if the employee is found to have drugs in their system. This test will usually include amphetamines, THC, cocaine, opiates, and PCP. An employer can test for other types of substances, including alcohol, but larger screening panels are more expensive and are generally reserved for jobs where the safety of customers or civilians is a concern. Drug testing policies are in place to keep workers and customers safe. The use of drugs on the job can create an unsafe environment, making employees more prone to accidents and injuries. To prevent this, a basic policy will test employees after an accident occurs in the workplace to make sure substance abuse was not the cause. A basic policy will also test when there is reasonable suspicion of an employee abusing drugs on the job or otherwise. We'll get more in depth with when to drug test in the next section. Now we'll talk about when to test. This is Ashley, an employee I recently hired. When I offered her the job, I informed her that our policy requires a drug test before her employment would be official. She passed the first test, but there have been some concerns voiced by her coworkers she may be using drugs while at work. I am about to talk to her about these claims. Ashley, can we talk?
Sure, what do you need?
There have been claims that you have been coming to work smelling like marijuana. Due to these claims, I have to investigate.
No, I've never touched that stuff. It has to be my incense or something else you're smelling.
I'm sure that's entirely possible, but since there have also been multiple reports that your eyes are often red and bloodshot, we will have to proceed with the investigation.
I have allergies!
That may be the case, but to put all our minds at ease, I need you to take a drug test to prove whether or not these claims are valid.
Can you do that?
These claims give me reasonable suspicion you may be using drugs while on the job. Our policy states that when claims like this are made, the employee under suspicion is required to take a drug test as part of the investigation. The Washington Revised Code 49.127.1 also allows employers to test under reasonable suspicion. As these claims have come from multiple sources, a drug test will be required to see if they are valid or not. After our conversation, Ashley was tested and was found to have THC in her system. Under our no-tolerance policy, she was terminated for drug use. I was able to test her after she was hired because her appearance and behavior strongly suggested she was smoking marijuana before coming to work. Many basic policies will allow testing randomly or when there is reasonable suspicion of drug use by an employee. Another time it is acceptable to test after the initial hiring is after accidents occur. Ben, another employee, recently fell down the stairs at work and as a result needs to take time off and may qualify for workers' compensation. After a few hours in the emergency room, Ben has come back to report to me as requested. I am about to tell him he needs to report for drug testing to ensure this accident wasn't caused by substance abuse. Hello, Ben. Are you feeling better?
A bit. My back really hurts and I can't use my right hand. The doctor says I won't be able to work for about a month.
I'm sorry to hear that. I have some workers' compensation forms for you to fill out, but as our policy states, part of filing will include a drug test. I need you to take the test as quickly as possible for our records.
Sure, I'll go to the testing center right now.
The testing center sent me the results and there were no drugs in Ben's system. Since drug use wasn't the cause of the accident, Ben was free to collect his workers' compensation, spend his time healing, and return to work once he was able. If he had tested positive, his workers' compensation would have been denied and he would have been fired under our policy. A basic policy requires testing after accidents occur, since accidents caused by drug abuse can be costly and are easily avoided if employees are required to stay sober on or off the job. It is important to test after a job offer is made, as well as when there is reasonable suspicion of drug use or an accident occurs. This helps maintain a healthy and functional work environment. So now that we've discussed when to test, let's go over some of the methods of testing. To explain the methods of testing, here's Dr. Kevin. Doctor?
Thank you, Simon. There are a few methods to check for illegal substances. The first and foremost being a urinary analysis. UAs are the most commonly used form of drug testing since they are inexpensive and effective. An employee will provide a urine sample, then we run that sample through our machines and voila! We can see any drugs we test for, broken down in their urine. Another method is blood testing. Instead of a urine sample, we draw blood and go through a similar process as the UA with similar results. Blood tests can give a more specific time window of drug use than a UA, but is also more expensive to do. There are also oral swab kits that will provide information about an employee's drug use. These kits can be used by a company to avoid lab fees, since they show the results on the side of the oral test. Simply swab the inside of the employee's mouth and you can see any immediate drug use. The cheaper the test is, the shorter the time period drugs can be detected. Usually, oral swabs can only detect drugs 24 to 36 hours after use. While they may be cheap, you get what you pay for, and they are the least reliable of the drug testing methods. Lastly, a hair sample is the most expensive and extensive form of drug testing. A hair is pulled from the subject's head and are broken down to determine the content. Drug use can be seen from 90 to 120 days before the test, so it goes back further than any other test. It is, however, the most expensive form of testing and is not used very often. I hope you found this information useful, Simon.
That was very informative. Thank you for all your help, Dr. Kevin. Now that we know how to test, let's wrap up this training with some statistics about drug testing. The following statistics are based on a 25-year study of nearly 125 million workplace drug tests. In regards to the prevalence of pre-employment workplace testing in 2011, 71% of Human Resource Survey respondents reported that they used some category of pre-employment drug testing. 58% of respondents stated that their organization conducted drug and/or alcohol screening, and this number jumped to 62% of respondents with organizations greater than 4,000 employees. The vast majority of organizations that indicated they conducted drug testing performed urine tests. Other tests were used, but less frequently. These included breath alcohol tests, hair, saliva, and blood testing. As expected, the average price for a drug test, as reported by 67% of respondents, ranged between $20 to $50. This would vary depending upon the drugs being tested, collection and shipping fees, and medical review officer services. The low-end cost of $10 to $20 reported by 15% of the respondents was most likely in-house instant urine tests. More than half of employers surveyed conduct drug tests on all job candidates, while only 29% do not conduct drug tests on any job candidates. In addition, most employers who use tests on job candidates have done so for 7 years or more. When employers do post-employment drug tests, the most common tests are post-accident testing, random testing, and reasonable suspicion testing. When companies were asked what type of drug testing sample they used, the human resource professionals responded that 84% used urine as the sample of choice, with the test performed in an off-site laboratory. Only 24% responded that they used instant urine tests, only 6% used hair testing, and 5% used instant or off-site laboratory oral fluid tests. Thank you for watching this training video on drug testing.